Evan, thanks so much for being with me.
Oh, thank you. This is awesome.
So, I love this topic, anal sex for beginners. I think I'd like to ask why you wrote the book. What's your interest in this topic? What's brought you to, to focus on this so much?
Yeah, I think it found me, honestly. I was training to be a heart surgeon many years ago, and I was miserable in surgery in my world. I finally came out. I met my partner, Andy. We've been together for 20 years. We have two boys together that are 14 years old. And through this process, you're engaging yourself, right,
Yeah,
in new approaches and trying to figure out and realizing that I thought, oh, you could just shove it in and,
yeah,
like doesn't work like that. And so I started to say to myself, God, if I'm having these issues, there must be a lot of people that have these issues or these questions or these concerns. Where do these people go?
yeah,
And the reality is that, 15 years ago, they didn't have a place to go. So I
yeah,
said, I'll do it. I don't care if I fix your heart, your ass, your tits, your whatever. It didn't matter to me.
yeah,
So, but this field didn't exist. Sexual wellness, specifically anal sex, and
yeah,
specifically in the gay space, just didn't exist. So I had to basically learn the surgical techniques, understand how it heals, understand how each community functions differently. And then that was the birth of Bespoke Surgical, which was about 15, years ago, which is crazy. And through this, when you're providing community-based practice, you start to see a lot of commonalities and a lot of issues that continue to become so common in the space where you say to yourself, okay, I want to save people and prevent this from happening. How do we
yeah.
do it? It's education, it's writing a book, it's pushing the narratives. And that was the birth of But Seriously, the book.
Right. So, I don't know, this question is sort of out of the blue, but when you're talking about surgery, is this mostly from sort of damage or injury from anal insertion? Or I mean, I imagine there's all kinds of things that would
A
lead someone
lot
to
of
need
things,
surgery.
I mean, I think a lot of people, nobody talks about pooping. Nobody talks the right way to poop. A lot of parents don't teach their kids or they're teaching them incorrectly. And so we eat terribly when we're younger, especially in college and grad school, etc. So all of these things play into it. But
Yeah.
most of the ailments that I see are either tears, which are anal fissures,
Hmm.
or hemorrhoids, especially post-pregnancy, hemorrhoids that cause skin tags or this extra veins, these dilated veins. And they're very limiting for people even when they're having regular bowel movements.
Right,
And
right,
for many people, trying to engage in anal sex with these hinders it. It creates a lot of friction,
right.
plus the aesthetic concern, because a lot of that plays into it as well. So there's
Yeah.
lots that goes into it. It doesn't need to be just injury from anal, though clearly I do see that.
Right, right. All right. Would you mind speaking to the what I would say is a myth that only gay men are interested in anal sex?
Yeah.
This is not
Total
just
myth.
yeah,
Total myth. It's tough. I mean, society pressures, religion, all of these components play into people thinking that you must be gay if you take it up the ass. And the reality is that that's totally far from the truth.
yeah,
I think, we're getting there, especially the younger generations are much more fluid and much more understanding that pleasure is pleasure. And how do you kind of take yourself out of that? When you look at prostate and prostate play, when you're engaging in anal pleasures, your prostate orgasms are that much more heightened. Regular orgasms, your prostate gets stimulated just from the act, but not directly. It's
yeah,
indirectly with anal play, with finger manipulation, toys, and full penetration. You're actually manipulating in a really good way the prostate gland, so people's orgasms becomes that much more heightened in it. There's a running thing that once a straight guy gets a finger up the ass, or once a straight guy gets something inside that stimulates the prostate, they'll never have orgasms like that again. And the reality is that's true.
hmm,
But there's so many things that play into people's mindset that you're right. It is a huge myth. We have to
Yeah.
squash that. Pleasure is pleasure. You get pleasure from so many different things. Why not through anal play?
Okay. And what about women without a prostate? Or do you hear
Yeah,
from,
it's
I don't know if you
huge.
see women in your
I
practice,
see
but
a lot of
like this
women.
can be
Yep,
pleasurable, right?
absolutely. So, first of all, you remember men and women are the same. It's just a rearrangement of parts in some capacity, right? So when you look at where the prostate lies, there's still so many positive nerve endings in that space for women. Posterior clitoral stimulation, posterior vaginal intercervix stimulation. Also, think about where the prostate lies. There's still so many amazing nerve endings in that space that will allow you so much pleasure. And again, similar when women or born women start to engage in anal and really start to do that in that capacity, it brings another game into their play.
Yeah.
Plus, it heightens so much that again, it's getting rid of that stigma of how do you bring it in. And no, anal shouldn't hurt. There shouldn't be bleeding. There shouldn't be issues where this is not pleasurable for you. There are definitely people where they do it and they're like, it doesn't really get me off.
Yeah.
Well, making sure, well, are you doing the right angles? Do you understand the right anatomy? Are you using the right apparatuses to engage in that capacity? But there's so many things that go into it. But yes, 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 totally. Anal play is for all comers, we say.
Okay. So if people are, people that are adept at this may not be listening to the episode, right? People that maybe are interested in trying this, what do they need to know? You said there's a lot that goes into it. How do we set
Yeah.
people up for success with this?
Yeah, I say the S is not overtly very complicated, and it's not. I mean, I think it's a couple of things. You have to think of its muscle, its skin, and it's the neural connection. How does the mind connect to it neurologically? And then how does the mind connect to it psychologically? So if you're just understanding anal anatomy, there are three sets of muscles in the ass. And if the listeners are squeezing, everybody do a Kegel and squeeze their asses
Right.
right now. What you're squeezing is you're squeezing the first two muscles. Those
Okay.
are called voluntary. They're on the outside.
Okay.
The internal one, which is the thickest muscle, that one is involuntary. That one, when you're squeezing it a little bit, but that's the one that has a mind of its own. So when we're having a bowel movement, the bowel movement moves into the space and it tickles that third muscle to
Mm-hmm.
give it a sensation to now relax. And then you feel like you need to poop. So you go to the bathroom and then you relax the other two muscles.
Gotcha.
So understanding that it's the same component. Well, stool is hitting it from the inside, we're entering anally from the outside. So we'll talk about doing toys and anal dilators, etc. But understanding the architecture of the muscle is really, really important. There are
Mm-hmm.
many times where, let's say, I'm trying to enter somebody and they're like, I'm relaxed, and I'm like, I can't get inside. It's mostly because that third muscle, even though you're sensing that you're relaxed, that third muscle is not fully relaxed. Now,
Ah,
in Bespoke Surgical, which is my practice, we've done many studies on understanding the anatomy. And there are basically three types of assholes in the world. The first type is type 1, which can actually engage in anal sex right off the bat. And
okay.
so, with that, when people are, and we'll talk about using toys and dilating, but you need to figure out which type of pelvis do you have. Are
Okay.
you type 1, where the muscles relax, you're able to control, you're able to open, and every step of the process, which we'll talk about, is easy, pleasurable, and no issues? That's really group 1.
And does
Group
that
2,
come because of our like a psychological relationship to our body and
I
our
think it's a
our accepting
combination
of
of,
this, or is this an
I
actual
nah,
physical and
it's
anatomical?
physical,
Okay.
totally anatomical. Yeah, I mean
Okay.
definitely that plays into it, but for sure, totally you're just blessed. We say it's the blessed bottom, which can
Okay.
just take it. Group 2 is, eh. I can take it 50, 60% of the time. Sometimes it's tighter, sometimes I feel restricted. I want to progress in the dilation and I'm a little bit, that type of a sensation. And then group three is in the book we talk in but seriously we talk about anal nopus, which is basically that, and the middle group is anal mediocris, which is just again that concept. So when the listeners are thinking, you're really trying to understand where you fit into that, because
Okay.
that allows you to really understand, well, what's the protocols moving forward. So we spoke a little bit about the muscle. Let's talk about the skin. So, and I say it's really important because if we're listening, a lot of listeners are female listeners, the skin in women is very, very thin,
Mm,
whereas the muscle is not so thick. It's not as thick as the male counterparts. Why? Because women need to give birth in theory, right? So
okay.
the muscles in the pelvic floor are much more relaxed in women. Now, I do a lot of anal Botox to relax the pelvic floor muscles, and we'll talk about that in group two or group three to help people. But I don't usually do it a lot in women. I would
Okay.
say maybe 5% of women need anal Botox, but their skin is very thin. So
Okay.
from the estrogens, from the hormones, the skin, that's why when giving birth, you can tear your skin and they have to do episiotomies and you tear the vaginal walls
Right.
very commonly because the skin is so thin to accommodate.
Okay.
So what I see a lot in anal sex is women presenting with tears or skin issues.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about getting into anal, it's how do we relax all of those three muscles? How do we get the overlying skin strong and pliable? And
Okay.
then how do we start working with your brain to figure out pleasure, relaxation, and control? So
Mm-hmm.
if someone says to me, "Hey, can you check my ass? Is everything good? I want to engage in anal." The first thing is buying an appropriate anal dilating kit.
Okay.
So it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get into really good habits to understand which group you're in and where you are to get into the final stages of sex. Now, I started a company called Future Method. Future Method is basically bridging what I learned in the office, which is the science, to sex. So it's bridging that into product development. I saw a lot of people using wrong products, from toys to butt plugs to douching incorrectly, all of these. And I said, God, I'm learning so much in the office. Why don't we start an actual really great products company that pushes the right narratives, but also supports the product? And
Mm-hmm.
that is our glass anal dilating kit. It
Okay.
comes as a set of three or four, and it's small, medium into large. I like glass because it's really weighted,
Yeah.
okay? And you need weighted to open up those muscles. You want to think of it like a rubber band. In the beginning, the rubber band is really tight, but as you're starting to dilate, what you're doing is you're gradually starting to stretch the rubber band. You may see that even if you're doing that, you're still feeling tight. That's where anal Botox comes in. I'm sure we can talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
but that helps to relieve, and it's given in that third muscle just to decrease the pressure enough so that now you can actually use the small to the medium and get into the larger toys.
Okay.
The protocol is starting with just the small toy for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Pretend like you're going to the gym. I want two sets of 10, two sets of 15, 2 to 3 times a week. That's it. If you want to use it sexually, great, use it sexually. But the reality is, in the beginning, I want it to be a little bit more medical, a little bit more medicinal, so that you're able to really understand your three muscles. How does it work? How does it function? I usually do it in the shower. So I'll turn the shower on. I'm standing up. I literally am lubricating the device and I push it in until I hit resistance and I'll hit the first muscle.
Yeah.
I hold it there. Three, two, one. I pull it back out. I relubricate again. I go back in and I'll hit again the first muscle. I'll learn how to relax that. I'll hold it there. I come back out. And it may take you 6, 8, 10 times of starting to kind of that routine to get all of those muscles to fully relax. The first two muscles, the belly of the muscle is actually really thin.
Yeah.
It's the third muscle. So you'll see that when you're entering, you'll hit those first two muscles really quite quickly. And then you'll hit the third muscle and be like, shit, where I can't get past that.
Right.
That's where you want to hold it for 3 seconds. Engage that muscle in a very controlled way. Remember, we spoke about that pooping mechanism. Well,
Hmm.
I need to tickle that third muscle. By tickling it, it's now going to tell, it's called the rare reflex, where you're able to get that to relax, and then all of a sudden it'll go in.
Okay.
Once you're fully in, I don't want you coming out anymore. I want you to leave the toy in, but move it 3 to 4 centimeter motions going back and forth. That's going to engage the muscle and get that to stretch. It's also going to create friction in the skin to toughen that skin.
Mm.
So, like, you're able to get calluses in the skin, similar to if you're playing the guitar or an
Right, right,
instrument or things like that. And don't worry. I don't want pain. It may
right.
be discomfort the first couple of times. It's okay. If you can't get it fully in, great. Take a couple of days off, try it again. And you'll start to see that each time it'll progress easier, 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 and easier.
Okay.
And then once you're like, okay, I take the small toy, I'm doing really well, you'll always start with the small
Right.
and then you'll go from small into medium and then repeat that process for 2 weeks and then you'll keep going. If you're in group one or really good group two, you'll progress so that by 6 weeks you're at small, medium, and large and you feel super comfortable.
Yeah.
If you're not, then it's, is there bleeding? Is there pain? Where's my restriction? I don't want any of those things. If it's persisting, then you may need to draw that protocol out a little bit more. Or do you need to see someone? Is there a hemorrhoid or a fissure or something that's limiting you? Do you need Botox? Do you need physical therapy? Where are you in that capacity? And that's where finding someone that can deal with this in your neighborhood. I do a lot of Zooms or virtuals, or a lot of people pop in from all over the world into New York. So there's so many things that we can do. If your mind is set on, hey, I do want to engage in anal, there's lots
Yeah.
that we can do to get you there.
Okay. A couple questions about that
Yeah,
then. What else is different in the set you've developed besides being glass? What else is
yeah,
different from like vaginal dilators? Or I am
sure,
imagining people at home thinking I could just grab this or that,
sure.
random objects to do this. Like, what's
Yeah.
important to know about how you've designed these?
So a couple of things. The vaginal dilators are a little bit more rounded at the top. So when you look at those, the vaginal cavity, once you're entering it, there's no real muscle in that space. It's
Right.
just kind of an empty space, right? Whereas, so what happens with this is if you take those vaginal dilators and push that in, you're not engaging the muscle in a uniform way. Ours is a lot more kind of in more of a pyramid kind of shape that's a little bit more pointed to allow you to get in there.
Okay.
Many of the other toys also have this neck at the base, like a butt plug. A lot of people think you can use butt plugs,
Yeah.
and but those don't do anything to stretch the muscle and work the skin. Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, what happens is the neck, all the muscle goes around the neck. And if you're in group 2 and 3 and you try to get that thing out, you're going to tear and cause issues.
Uh,
So if people like butt plugs, that's a little bit later on down the path. And a lot of people will do the anal dilators first, setting the stage for it. And then if that tickles you, great, you can put a butt plug in there, but you want to make sure you're doing the same thing, small, small into medium, medium into large, before you're getting into something so big, because it does nothing for stretching and opening your hole. Does
okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. And I imagine there's some sort of base or something that means
Yep.
it cannot get taken up into your
Exactly.
body, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that's got to
And
be
and you so
important.
you want it to be super uniform. So the vaginal dilators are really uniform, which is great. And there's a base that you're able to. I love the glass because you could use whatever lube you want. And it's literally sticks so much on the glass, which a lot we make the toys in silicone too. There are still people that don't want to play in glass, and that's totally fine. So you can use the silicone. But remember, with silicone, you have to use the certain lubes. Also with it, you need to constantly reapply with any of those lube, with any of those devices, just because it sucks up the lube quite well with that.
Okay. Okay. The other thing I'm thinking, listening to this 6+ week preparation, is the misconception maybe of, I don't know, maybe it's a generalization that hetero men want their girlfriend or their wife to do anal and think all we need is a bottle of lube and let's go. And you're
Yeah.
suggesting, no, no, for alien, unless you've got a blessed butt, right?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
really
But
is
even
going to be a
that,
working up to this, right?
that's right. And even that, doggy style and the guy just shoving it in is the worst position to start with from an anal perspective.
Okay.
And I get it. I get it. I mean, we all get it. It's just a matter of the key first is solo anal play.
Okay.
How do you learn your own body? How do you understand the right way to engage for you? Because all the top cares about is sticking it in there and going to town. I mean, that's
Right.
the mentality. They don't
Right.
only they love you and all this other
Right. Right.
stuff,
Right. But
whatever.
that's what
But
they're,
but but that's what their mindset is.
yeah.
So can your skin take it? Can your muscles fully relax? What's the best positioning for you? How do you set the stage for success? So think about, like, you've passed the 6 week protocol. You've now learned how your body engages. Can you just let your partner go behind you? No. So I usually say the first sessions for you are you're bringing the dilators in to sex play. You're
Yeah.
using them as foreplay. If not during the session, before, like when you're
Hmm.
getting ready and cleaned and all that stuff, you bring the dilators. It pre-lubricates you, it opens you up, it sets the stage for success. And then you are on top of them. You are in
Hmm.
control. I always tell people I'm fine with being submissive, but you need to learn how to be control in that submission. And in the
Hmm.
beginning, I don't want you to be submissive. I want you to be on top. You're riding that person, your partner, whomever, like you would the dilator. Prove to yourself it's working. You're able to get into a good space. And then that other partner could start doing more and being more active. And
Okay.
then you can switch positions in the book. But seriously, we talk a lot about different positions, and we gave it one peach, two peach, three peaches for the severity of difficulty.
Okay.
With that being said, in the book, there's certain, like, doggy style, or like when you're picking up somebody and they're engaging, those are quite dangerous for anal. It's not to
Mm.
say that it can't be done and it can't be perfected, but they're much more advanced. And so you really want to start to set the stage, because the problem is when someone has a bad anal experience, their mindset is, I'm never
Yeah,
doing this shit again. And so
exactly.
if
I tried
you
it,
if
didn't
you
work. Yeah.
exactly, and if you have a bad first experience because someone's not educated, someone thinks you're just going to shove it in, you don't know the right ways to do what you need to do, then you're just going to be like, fuck this shit, I'm not doing this. But at the end of the day, you're missing out potentially on something that may have been so special for you, but it
Hmm.
was just done incorrectly. And it's not necessarily you doing it incorrectly, it's our system failing you, right?
Yeah.
Improper education, not understanding, not having the right tools, not really having the right resources and support to engage. So I honor what you're doing by, one, having me on, so thank you, but two, continuing to push the sex narratives, because it allows people to start thinking not on the societal pressures and not on the misconceptions, but on how do we really take hold and ownership of our own sexual practices.
Yeah. Yeah. What's another like one peach position? I'm hearing you say start on top and you're sort of driving. What's maybe the
Most
next?
of it, most of it is where you're facing the individual. So
Okay.
you're able to see, are you grimacing? Are they grimacing? What are the right, what are the habits? And the discussion needs to be happening also with the top of, like, hey, I'm super new to this. I'm in control. Let me just get you hard and you lie there. I want to do this for you. I want to provide this for you, but it's a process. How do we get to where we want to be? Blah, blah, blah. All of those things. All the other positions can be done, but there needs to be a lot more communication as you're
Yeah.
doing that. So side positions I really like, but again, with side positions, you're facing each other, or if you're not, then you're literally you're kind of sitting on the device, sitting on the penis, etc., to set that stage.
Yeah. Okay. As far as lube in the actual sexual act, any suggestions? Are there
Sure.
mistakes people make with this, like
Yeah,
using the wrong
yeah.
stuff or not enough of
Yeah,
it?
spit. Spit is not a good lube.
Okay.
Okay. Oil-based lubes that are out there, they don't need to be FDA controlled, but there's terrible studies on them. And when you look at oil intra anything, intravaginally, intraanally, it causes significant amount of irritation. Now,
Any
same thing,
oil?
all oils. Now,
Okay.
now everyone loves coconut oil and all this stuff, but there has to be so many more studies done,
Okay.
but the people that make the coconut oil don't want the studies to be done, right? So it winds up being, it's like this whole shift. And I know
Yeah.
why people love all that stuff, and massaging and all this stuff, and then you're engaging, but doing it on a consistent basis I don't think is the right thing.
Okay.
Anal sex, the best lube is silicone based lube.
Okay.
You know, it is the best lubricity. It decreases the most friction the most. It stays in that area. You could do water play. You could do all these things with it. Water-based lube, I know why people like to use it because it's easy to wash off. It's so quick and easy. But think about when you're using water-based lube vaginally. It fucks with the pH. It
Yeah.
changes the microbiome. The same thing happens anally. So you can imagine when people are douching, when they're cleaning out with water, and they're using water-based lubes, what happens is there's an alteration of the pH, the microbiome in that space, which can lead to higher incidence of STDs, HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and also anal injury.
Okay.
So I think, again, for the most part, you'll be fine. But I'm always someone that's like, hey, if you're going to do it right and you're doing the right devices and you want to use the right lube, silicone is the go-to.
Okay. And what about prep hygiene?
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
like if all my muscles relax, am I just gonna shit on the bed
Yeah.
or what?
Yeah.
Like what are the?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. First off, whenever we're playing in the anal space, at some point in your life, if you're engaging anally, we're going to have poop in the space.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of try to take away that taboo and destigmatize that, because at the end of the day, that shaming of people is terrible.
Yeah.
With that being said, I always think of gut health before butt health. So, how are you using your diet? Higher proteins, higher fiber, bulking agents. How do we make sure that you poop like my dog Oreo? It is so easy. It comes out, there's no wiping, right?
Yeah.
If you can't get there with your diet alone, then you need to supplement with fiber and pre and probiotics.
Okay.
Now, our brand has fiber and pre and probiotics. Many brands do. You can get Metamucil. It's not all fiber is created equal, but you have to see what works for you, and what may work one may not work the other. So you have to see. But thinking about fiber as a bell-shaped curve, you are adding and staying on. Let's say you're doing one scoop of something. You're staying on it for a full month. Don't change it. Don't change other things. Just stay on it for a full month. If you're still not where you need to be, add another scoop, and you're going to slowly start to titrate and see where you are. Same thing with pre and probiotics. Our brand is the first ever anal pre and probiotic because of people using water based lubes and douching. And we'll talk about it. How do we get the pre and probiotic down to the ass? I say if I went out on the streets in New York City and I swabbed 10 random people, I can tell who takes it up the ass because of their bacteria count.
Hmm.
There's this higher bacteria, which is called Prevotella, which is what's linked to all the potentials of STDs, etc. So, how do you replenish the microbiome with the right specific, appropriate pre and probiotics? Also, if you are going to douche, how do you douche with the right solution? And so I'll talk you through that. So I think first is really analyzing the gut stuff. Like, no offense to Chipotle, if I go to Chipotle, I definitely can't bottom tomorrow. So you
Okay.
have to start to see like, okay, doing a food diary or understanding what makes sense. I don't want you to starve yourself. You don't need to do that, but you need to kind of figure out like, okay, hey, I do want to feel sexy and I want to engage. What are the right things that I can do to set the stage for that success? Now, I own a douche company, but at the end of the day, I don't want you to douche. Okay. I get it. But there are many people that still do the diet thing. Their poops are perfect, but they're still concerned. And
Yeah.
the reality is that I say do the anal dilators that we spoke about without douching. Show yourself that most of the time you're actually going to be clean because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
stool doesn't sit in the rectum. If it
Right.
sits in the rectum, you're thinking you need to poop, you got to go poop, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so again, now most people if they're douching are using either shower hoses or water in a really big bulb. And what happens is you're actually eliciting a bowel movement. So instead of just cleaning where toys and penis would go, they're going way
Oh,
higher. And then what happens is it starts to move. And the classic example is I've douched once, I'm clean. I douched twice, I'm clean. I want to do one more time. And then that third time, they're dirty. And then it just
yeah.
creates this cycle where 45 minutes of cleaning, and that shouldn't be. So in the beginning of starting Future Method, I said, well, wait a second, why can't we become the crystal light of douching? So basically, I came up with a powdered solution that you put into water, drinkable water. And in that water, that powder makes it pH balanced, what's called isotonic and isoosmolar. So it will clean you, it'll stimulate that area to create a sexy environment, it pre-lubricates, and it cleans you the right way. But our bulbs are smaller on purpose.
Yeah.
Our travel kits of throwaways are smaller on purpose because I want people to start titrating their douching lower and lower. Less is always more, specifically in the anal space. And if
Okay.
you're getting into anal and you're finally at the stage of, hey, I'm going to get into anal sex, well, do douching then with your toy stuff in the beginning so you can understand, like, how do I get this super limited? Like, how do I get this to the least amount of work and still feeling sexy and comfortable? A lot of people also will do the toy stuff after they douche because most people, when they're doing this, they're going to shower and clean themselves, right? So I say by using the toys after, it gets rid of any extra liquid. It's the litmus test of are you clean? And then it just sets the stage for success. But remember, less is always more. And if you're douching 4 times, maybe the next time you go to 3 times. Prove to yourself that you're okay. Go to two
Yeah.
times. Whatever you need to do, because the more douching you do, the more irritation you have, the more you're setting yourself up for failure in the anal sex space.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What about cleaning after for both participants? What's important to
Yeah,
know?
it's really you. There are plenty of people that don't clean after, and totally fine. There's no issues with that. I think less is more. You know, some people want to douche out after, and if they're douching, doing something with our powder packs makes sense because it's an anti-inflammatory component. It
Yeah.
creates, it'll set the stage for success in that. But the reality is, if you're clean, I mean, think about where, like, do women clean out all the time vaginally when they're doing, after sex with sperm and all that stuff? No, it sits in there, it gets absorbed and does your thing. It just kind of depends. But I'm always less is more. So if you don't need to, don't. But if you are, just one simple, clean, easy rinse with a formula that makes sense can help you.
Okay. And what about for the penis owner? Should they at least pee after? Because I'm imagining
Yes,
could
of
bacteria be
course.
going up the
Yeah,
urethra?
totally. I mean, I think many people still are using, especially in the hetero space, are using condoms. In the gay space, 80 to 90% of people don't. So with that being said, yes, I mean, obviously peeing post play for any type of sex makes sense, even on the vaginal side and the anal side. Obviously, most people know that you don't do anal first and then vaginal second, right? So if you're
Yes,
going to
right. Good to
engage,
know.
do vaginal first. and then going from there, and then kind of see how it progresses from there.
Okay. Anything else I forgot to ask you that you'd want to cover?
You're asking
I
me, I
guess
mean, you
people just
asked
have
all
to
the.
go out and get the book, right? That's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, there's lots of things to think about. In the book, we talk a lot about dispelling all those myths and taboos, and really also then like setting the framework of success with you, your physicians, and the people that you surround yourself with from a physical perspective, open lines of communication, right? We go a lot into that space where, because what happens if you get hurt? Well, where do you go? What doctors do you seek? Like,
hmm
you need to set up this thing of saying, hey, how do I provide myself in the comfort zone? Obviously, I go significantly into a lot more anatomy as it relates to understanding your anatomy and all of that, the P spot, the A spot, and then clearly into, well, what if something goes wrong? What if I am bleeding or having pain? What can I do through suppositories and lotions and things to help mitigate things so that you're able to set the stage for that success, right?
Yeah.
And so in that book, it goes through all of those things into obviously the positions and really working as it relates to it. And then it also goes to common ailments, which is, wait a second, I do have an ugly skin tag in that space, or I don't want to engage anally, but I want to wear a G-string, or I don't feel sexy, or my husband's going down on me and I don't feel comfortable in that space. Well, there's lots of things because I bridged cosmetic plastic surgery with the functional surgery of the ass. So, with those being said, there's so many things, especially post pregnancy, where I am bleeding, or I have swelling in the space, or I have extra skin. And then I always say, well, would you engage in anal? And they're like, I would love to if those other things were fixed, if sex was comfortable. So I think a lot of all of those things really plays into hopefully what the listeners are thinking in their mind, and then coming up with a plan, because once you get into anal and you bring anal into your sex world, it's a whole different world, literally. Puns everywhere.
Right, right. All right. So where do people go? What's your website or how do they reach
Sure.
out to you?
Yeah, so for me, Dr. Evan Goldstein is on at Instagram and kind of all channels. Bespoke Surgical is the kind of anal surgical practice, and that's all on channels. Future Method, it's at the Future Method on Instagram. It's futuremethod.com is all the product stuff, but more so even the science of sex and education on there. And then the book is called But Seriously. You can get that everywhere, even on butseriously.com, my website, and also Amazon and all the major places.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for your work in this space.
Oh, thank you so much. This was great.